Hello and welcome to Story Stash. I'm your host Duncan, and these are some of my stories I've written. Today I'm reading from my book Star Guardian 2, and this is Chapter 3. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest update. Now, let's get started. Chapter 3, Investigation. We returned to the meeting room in the administration hub. The guards once again waited outside. Soon after, Administrator Tobis joined us. "I understand there have been developments in your investigation, Captain," he said, with his familiar, confident smile. "Yes, as you have been updated by Lane, Communications Officer Marwin was found dead in his cabin. We believe his death was murder that was made to look like a suicide," said Jem. His eyes seemed to widen a little for a moment. "My guards had informed me it was a suicide. Are you sure? Was there any evidence that others had been in his cabin?" asked Tobis. "We examined the angle of entry of the shot in his head. It could not have been made while holding the weapon in his right hand. And the other thing that makes his death suspicious is the timing. We arrived, and soon after, he dies," replied Jem. "I see. So you are suggesting we have a murderer on this station." He continued to look directly at Jem, ignoring the rest of us. It was beginning to bother me. "Yes, at this point we cannot confirm his guilt or innocence regarding communicating with the pirate. He was perhaps working with another being, who then murdered him to shut him up. Or he was killed to leave a false trail. We need to investigate further to find out," said Jem. Tobis thought for a moment. "Captain, the death of one of my staff concerns me. Please continue your investigation, and please continue to have Lane keep me informed of your progress." With that, he left the room. "Are your investigations usually like this?" asked Lane. "No, usually they are far more dangerous," replied Jem with a smile. "So, we have a person of interest, the late Communications Officer Marwin. We need to investigate his background and activities around the time period when the message was most likely sent to the pirates. Was he the one who sent the message, or was he innocent?" said Jem. "And we have an unknown killer of Communications Officer Marwin. The killer had to have access to his cabin soon after we arrived. Perhaps there are logs or video feeds that show someone visited his cabin," said Kaluna. "Lane, is that corridor the only way to reach his cabin from here?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. She typed on her keyboard. On the display on the wall appeared a map of the station. "This is his cabin, and this is the administration hub." She highlighted the two locations on the map. I nodded. It was clear there was just one path between the two. Lane typed some more, and the display now showed Marwin's career history aboard the station. "I see nothing significant here. How about you?" asked Lane. "It looks like he kept out of trouble, but did not go beyond meets expectations," I said. Next on the display appeared a list of his movements around the station. Everywhere that he went that was logged was on his list. It was a chronological list of locations. He won't be going any further now. He was not on duty around the time, but he was out of his cabin. "What is this designation?" I asked. "It is Storage Room 47 Alpha," said Lane. "Could you put up a map of the station and highlight Storage Room 47 Alpha? Also the cabin of Officer Marwin," said Jem. A moment later, a map was on the display. "I wonder what he was doing there. It is some distance from his cabin," said Jem. "The logs show he visited that room several times since," Kaluna pointed out. Lane typed for a bit, and the entries for his visits to that room were highlighted. I'd like to see what is so important in that room, said Jem. What about the unknown killer? Asked Kaluna. Lane, could you arrange it so that Kaluna could review logs and video feeds around the time Officer Marwin was killed? Asked Jem. Of course. She tapped on her keyboard some more. Some windows popped up on the display. Here are access logs for that area of the station for that period, and here are feeds for the various cameras we have near his cabin. You can scroll forwards and backwards like this. Thank you, Lane, said Kaluna. While you look for clues here, Brian and myself will check out that room, said Jem. Here, take this in case you need to use the scanner. Kaluna handed me the medical kit. Thanks, I said. Kaluna remained in the meeting room with the 2 guards outside, and we left with the other 2 guards. We walked along several corridors in a different direction this time. The station was so large, it could use some kind of transportation system. I assume that they avoided moving cargo around by having a vessel drop off in the same location that another vessel would later collect it from. Lane consulted a handheld device that showed our location and where we were headed. She seemed satisfied we were going in the right direction because this station was built over time with modules from various sources. The corridors and airlock doors were different as we went along. Some were visibly much older than others, including the section we were in when we finally arrived at our destination. This module was old, and from the dust on the floor I figured few people had been here recently. There was a sign on the door that said 47 Alpha. The latch was a manual one, not needing some kind of security scan. One guard reached out to open the door as my sense of paranoia spiked. Hold on a moment, I said loudly. The guard paused and looked at me and then at Lane. What is it, Brian? Asked Jem. I pointed one finger upwards to indicate hold on a moment. Then I pulled out the scanner from my medical kit and scanned the door to confirm my hunch. So the logs showed that Officer Marwin was here multiple times, is that correct? That is correct. We saw that back at the administration hub, replied Lane. But there is no scanner built into this door. How could it get into the log he was here? I asked. Jem and Lane looked at the door and then at the readout on my scanner. I carried on. If he had been here, there would be no log entries. If he had been here as many times as the log suggested, there would be footprints in the dust by the doorway. You're right, I missed that, said Lane. She turned to the 2 guards and spoke to them in the language they used. I was on my way to full panic mode by now. We were in some old module where nobody would come looking for us. This did not seem right. At that point, the guards dropped their neutral expressions and sneered at us. They both drew their weapons. One guard barked instructions to Lane. He said, We're to get inside, said Lane. Does that include you? I asked. Yes, all 3 of us. I had nothing to do with this, I swear. I don't understand what is going on, replied Lane. I looked at the weapon in the guard's hand. It appeared to be an energy-based weapon. I knew I should be okay if he didn't shoot me in the head. I moved around Lane and got between her and the guards. So far he was pointing it at my torso. I slowly replaced the scanner in my medical kit and reached for the stun gun. It looked like a medical probe. I hid it in my palm and brought my hand out. I kept my tone calm and kept my eyes on the closest guard with a weapon. Jem, see if you can open that door. The guard had not seen my stun gun, and he barked more instructions to Lane. That was when I brought up my hand and shot him. At the same time, he fired back at me. The charge dissipated over my suit and down to the deck plate. He fell backwards, and I quickly turned to cover the second guard. The second guard was shocked to see his fellow falling backwards, and did not see me aim and fire at him. This time, he did not get a shot off, and he crumpled to the deck beside the first guard. I quickly relieved the 2 guards of their weapons, then I turned to check with Jem and Lane. "Are you okay?" I asked them both. "I'm fine. How did the suit work out?" asked Jem. "I didn't feel a thing," I said. I gave Jem a weapon. "How long before the stun wears off?" "Not long. We better get them inside the room," I replied. Jem opened the door and I dragged 1 guard into the empty storage room. There was nothing in here. I went back and dragged the other guard into the room. "Brian, there is no lock on this door," said Jem. "I got it," I said. I closed the door, and with the weapon on a low setting, I fired at the edge of the door to spot weld it shut. "They should be okay for a while. We can send someone back to fetch them." Personally, I did not care if we did, but perhaps they had information we could extract. Lane was still in a such state of shock. Why would they want to kill us? I think one of them killed Officer Marwin. I also think there are others caught up in this. We need to get back to the administration hub and find out who else is involved. "Can you guide us back there?" asked Sam. "I can, yes," said Lane. We quickly left the module and proceeded back the way we came. We walked briskly along the corridor. I was keen to get back to the administration hub and to Kaluna. We should not have left her alone. Lane asked me, "How come he shot you and it did not even injure you?" "This is a special uniform. The cloth dissipates the energy from a weapon. It went down my legs and into the deck," I replied. "So that is why you pushed in front of me?" "Yes, that weapon would have killed you if he fired it at you. I had to put myself in front so he could not do that," I said. "We could not tell you about the properties of our clothing without alerting the guards." "They could have shot us in the heads. In that case," said Jem. Lane was quiet for a moment as we walked through another airlock between modules. "I thank you for risking your life to protect mine," Lane said to me. "You are welcome," I said. "Not another life debt." At this point, my wrist communicator went off. "Alert, something of interest is happening outside the station," said Ship. We had been out of touch with Ship for too long. I pressed the button on my wrist communicator. "Ship, this is Brian. Jem is with me. Please report." "Commander, there are 3 vessels leaving the station," replied Ship. "Crap!" "Ship, scan all of them for Kaluna's life signs. Ping her chip and work out which vessel she is on if you can," I said. "Confirmed. I have located her aboard one of the 3 vessels," replied Ship. "Can you intercept that vessel, or can you track where they are going?" "I cannot reach them before they enter hyperspace. I will have a probe calculate their destination." "Commander, I have additional information. The main reactor aboard the station is building up energy. I suspect an overload is imminent." "Thank you, Ship. Be ready to leave as soon as we are aboard." "Out," I said. Jem had heard my conversation. "Lane, we need to get back to our vessel fast. This station will explode soon. You are welcome to come with us. Can you find us a more direct route?" asked Jem. "Yes, I can." Lane updated her handheld device, and it now had docking port 12 as our destination. We ran along the corridors, not knowing how much time we had remaining. I had another thought, so I called Ship again. "Ship, are there other vessels docked at the station? Please warn them that the main reactor will overload, and advise them to move clear." "Confirmed," replied Ship. We kept running. As we ran, I heard a distant explosion. As sound does not travel in space, it had to be from aboard the station. Lane's handheld device showed we were almost there, so we kept on running. We saw no other beings as we ran. Perhaps they all evacuated in those 3 vessels that left recently. We did not have time to find out. Then the lights went out. It's hard enough running along poorly lit corridors in a space station on the verge of destruction. Lane stumbled, but I grabbed her arm and stopped her from falling over. "Thanks," said Lane. I could barely see her face. She looked worried. There was just some faint light from our equipment. "I will have to ask Ship. add a flashlight to our suits if we make it back. We have to keep moving, said Jem. We moved on again, just a bit more cautiously, so as not to run into a wall. We reached a doorway that did not have power to open. I wasted no time and worked on the manual override. The docking port is on the other side of this doorway, said Lane. In the event of a power failure, most doors have a way of opening manually. I'd got the panel off and was turning a crank. The door was slowly opening. Jem was trying to pull the door open. I think I can see the airlock. I kept cranking in the dark. I needed more space for me to get through, as the largest person in the group. Jem squeezed through the gap, followed by Lane. I needed just a little more. At that point, the artificial gravity went out. My feet floated slowly off the deck. Crap! I decided that I had done all the cranking I could. I was still holding onto the crank handle. When there is no gravity, you need to hold on to something. I put my feet on the wall, and as I let go, I kicked myself toward the door and poked my head through the gap. Jem? Lane? I yelled. The gravity has gone out in this area, replied Jem. Yes, I know, I am coming through, I said. It was a tight squeeze, but I wriggled my way through. I held on to the edge of the door and looked across to the airlock. Jem, Lane, hold on to me and put your feet on the door frame. We need to kick off to get to the airlock, I said. They held on and put their feet on the door. Look up, see where we are headed? On the count of 3, we kick off. 1, 2, 3. We floated across the docking bay towards the airlock. I pressed my communicator. Ship, we are in the docking bay. Can you get power to the airlock door on this side and open it now? Confirmed, said Ship. I looked up towards the airlock as we drifted along. We were still on course. Thankfully, there was no junk in the way. Without gravity, things like tables and chairs would just float around and become obstacles to our progress. I looked up towards the airlock. I saw lights come on around the airlock, and the door slowly opened. We were about 50 meters away and closing. Brian, I just had a bad thought. With the power out, we lost lighting and doors, and then gravity. I think the last to go would be air pressure, said Jem. You're right. I think it's time we unroll our collars and cuffs. Keep holding on to me tight, Lane. If the air pressure drops, breathe out slowly, I said. We had to be careful, or else we could knock each other off course. I rolled up my hood and got the faceplate installed. Then I did my cuffs and pressed the button to pressurize. Jem did the same while somehow holding on to me with one hand. Lane looked on at us amazed. We got to about 20 meters from the airlock when the air pressure dropped. I looked at Lane. She had a look of panic on her face. With one hand I held on to her wrist. If she became unconscious, she could not hold on. I hoped holding her wrist would give her confidence. She only needed just a couple more minutes. Ship, get ready to close the airlock door and pressurize. We're almost in, I said over the suit comms. Confirmed, said Ship. Jem, grab for the opening when we get close and pull us in, I said. We drifted to the airlock. Jem grabbed and pulled me in. I pulled Lane in with me. Ship, close the airlock and pressurize now, I shouted. The door closed and I could hear air hissing in. Soon we had gravity again, and we gently came to rest on the deck. I quickly pulled open my hood and moved to check on Lane. For a moment she was not breathing, with her eyes closed. I was not sure of her anatomy and did not know what to do for resuscitation. With the different races and their physiologies, you could just as easily kill them rather than revive. I was on my knees, leaning over her, and then suddenly she gasped in a huge breath and opened her eyes. She looked up at me, smiled, and before I reacted, she put her arms around my neck and pulled me down and kissed me. I tried to pull back, but she was surprisingly strong. Thank you again, Brian, she said. Sigh. You are welcome. We have to move quickly. We're not safe here. Can you get up? I pulled back and she sat up. Jem was standing by now, and she gave us both a hand up. We quickly moved out of the airlock and back into ship. As soon as we were in, ship detached from the station and moved us away from the station. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3. And next episode, we'll obviously have chapter 4, Pursuit. So, hope to join you then. Until then, goodbye.